Most of what we think of as wealth, the flashy cars, the big houses, that's often just an illusion of high spending. But true, lasting financial freedom, that's built very differently. It's built quietly, with some really simple habits. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you the real path to building wealth.
This single idea right here is the foundation for absolutely everything we're about to cover. It's a total challenge to how most of us were taught to think about money. See, it's not about the car you drive or the zip code you live in. Real wealth is the money you don't spend. It's the assets you quietly pile up that work for you, even when you're sleeping.
Okay, so let's start by just tearing down a really common myth. For decades, research from books like The Millionaire Next Door has shown us something surprising. The truly wealthy, well, they often don't look the part. They aren't always the ones with the massive salaries. They're the ones who have mastered their financial habits.
The research really breaks people down into two groups. On one side, you've got the under-accumulators of wealth, or UAWs. Now, these folks might have a great income, but it all goes towards high-status goods. They're focused on looking rich. But on the other side, you have the prodigious accumulators of wealth, or pays. These are the people who become the quiet millionaires. They value financial independence way more than appearances, and they build their wealth through discipline, not by showing it off.
But before we get into the practical, step-by-step stuff, it's so important to understand the psychology behind this. You see, building wealth isn't just about spreadsheets and market analysis. It's almost entirely driven by your behavior and your mindset.
This quote from Morgan Housel just nails it. You don't have to be a finance genius or an economist to build wealth. Your behavior, your patience, your discipline, your ability to just not panic, that is so much more powerful than any complex investment strategy you could ever learn. And it's the one thing you have 100% control over. And that behavior actually has to change over time. Housel makes this brilliant point that getting wealthy and the staying wealthy are two completely different skills. I mean, think about it. Getting money often means you have to be optimistic, take some risks, but keeping it, that takes humility and a little bit of fear. The goal isn't just to get big returns. The goal is to be financially unbreakable so you can stick around long enough for compounding to do its magic. Survival is everything.
Which brings us to a very, very modern problem, and it's summed up by this term, Henry. It stands for high earner, not rich yet. This is someone who's making a great salary, let's say over $200,000, but they're not actually building any real wealth. And why is that? Because as their income goes up, so does their spending. It's a trap, and it's the exact trap these next habits are designed to help you escape.
All right, so how do you avoid becoming a Henry? Well, it boils down to three simple, quiet habits. These aren't flashy or complicated, but I promise you, they are the absolute bedrock of financial independence.
The first, and maybe the most powerful habit of them all, is automation. Look, trying to rely on willpower to save money is a recipe for failure. There's always going to be something else to spend that money on. But when you set up automatic transfers, you take emotion and choice completely out of the equation. You start treating your savings like it's a mandatory bill, like rent or your mortgage, and you make sure you always pay yourself first.
So, where do you automate first? Your tax-advantaged accounts. If we're looking ahead to 2026, the goal is to set up automatic transfers to max these out. Start with your 401k, especially to get any employer match. That's free money. Then move on to your IRAs and HSAs. This is, without a doubt, the most efficient first step you can take.
Okay, the second habit is all about protection. Think of your emergency fund as your financial fortress. It is not there to make you rich. It's there to be a cash buffer. This buffer is what protects your long-term investments from being sold off at the worst possible time just because your car broke down or you had an unexpected medical bill. It's insurance. It buys you peace of mind.
And you do not want that fortress just sitting in a regular old checking account, losing value to inflation every single day. As of early 2026, online high-yield savings accounts are offering some really competitive rates. It's a simple, smart way to make your emergency cash fight inflation for you while still being totally liquid and safe.
Now, here's the key. You have to draw a very hard line and define what an emergency actually is. A sudden job loss? That's an emergency. A surprise medical bill? Emergency. A big sale on concert tickets? That is not an emergency. If you don't have strict rules, you'll end up dipping into your survival kit for non-essentials, and it'll be empty when you really need it.
And this brings us to the third habit, the one that really powers everything else. Wealth isn't created by how much money you make. It's created in the gap between what you earn and what you spend.
Your job isn't just to earn an income, it's to actively engineer and widen that gap over time. And this isn't about feeling deprived, it's a strategic choice to fund your own freedom. And you know, living below your means in 2026 doesn't mean you have to look or feel cheap. It's all about stealth frugality. Instead of a flashy new car lease, you drive a reliable paid-off car for a decade. You embrace dupe culture to find quality things without paying the brand tax. You start repairing things instead of just replacing them. And you use little tricks like using physical cash for your fun money categories to easily control that spending. It's a quiet power move.
So you have these 3 habits: automating, protecting, and widening the gap. They're powerful on their own, but they are turbocharged by one incredible force: the compounding engine. This is the secret sauce that turns small, consistent actions into extraordinary wealth over time.
Warren Buffett explained this perfectly with his snowball analogy. The wet snow is your savings and investments. The really long hill? Well, that's time. The longer you let that snowball roll, the bigger it gets, and its growth starts to become exponential. Time is the most important ingredient of all.
And if you want to know what that long hill really looks like, just let this number sink in for a second. 96% of Warren Buffett's wealth was generated after his 65th birthday. The really mind-blowing results don't show up for decades. His secret wasn't just being a brilliant investor, it was being an investor for over 75 years. That's the power of time.
Okay, so we've gone through the mindset, the habits, and the engine that makes it all work. The most important thing to remember is that this whole journey doesn't start with some giant, intimidating leap. It starts with one small, simple, and honestly, kind of boring step.
So here's a concrete action plan you can use literally today. First, just track everything for 1 month. You need to really understand where your money is going to find your gap. Second, automate one single transfer. It doesn't have to be a huge amount. The goal is just to build the habit. And third, pick just one of those stealth frugality ideas and try it for 30 days. See how it feels. The goal here is consistency, not intensity.
In the end, building wealth isn't about one big, dramatic decision. It's the sum of thousands of small, quiet, consistent choices that you make over decades. The most important choice you have is always the next one. So, what's it going to be?